Hey everybody, this is Sam Who Can't Play Games. This is my new channel, Sam Who Can't or Can, question mark. Basically, I have popcorn brain, which most of you have found on the Sunrise Gecko channel, which is Kendra and Mike's channel. So I got to thinking that it would be fun to just have my own little station where I can do random crap that's not necessarily appropriate for Kendra's station, which is just mainly gameplay, or Kendra and my station, which is mainly gameplay. So this is Sam Can't or Can, and we'll see what I can or can't do. There'll also be vlogs where I'm just talking about stuff, subscriber requests if you guys want to see anything. We're going to do a lot of crafting stuff, most likely because I really like crafting, and different things like that. In fact, today, for our little introductory thing, I got blessed with a bunch of roses. Now, these are not roses that I got personally. The place that I work brought in a bunch of roses for Mother's Day, and they had some left over. And I got permission to take them home once they started dying. So I have a ton of rose petals. And what I'm going to do with those is make potpourri. Now, there's a couple of ways to make potpourri. You can do the faster of the two methods, which is drying them in your oven. Drying them in your oven, however, has a tendency to, these are white and these are red. It has a tendency to blanch out the colors and make it look more antique-ish. But this right here is some that I did because I wanted to test them in the oven and see how the white petals would turn out. They didn't turn out so well, so I'm actually doing another method, which is just drying them. Now, there's a couple of other ways that you can just air dry them. Usually I just stick them on a pan, put them up someplace high, and check on them in a week. Sometimes if you don't have animals, you can put them out on window seals, on paper towels, basically however you want to do it. So why don't we take a little bit of a closer look and I can explain to you guys some of the stuff that I've got. So what we got going on right here is these are some of the petals that I've already started air drying. As you can see, if you compare them to the ones that I did in the oven, they're still white. And these would be the white ones with the red tips after they've dehydrated in the oven for a couple of hours. And I'll explain how to make these antique looking ones here in a minute. But when you air dry, they retain their color. Now this right here kind of is starting to have the papery feel. A lot of the moisture is basically drying out, and that's what we're doing, is we want the moisture out of the petals. This one right here, you can see it still looks really soft. If I break it, you'll actually still see some of the liquid and stuff in there. You'll see how the petal bruises. There's still liquid inside the petal if the petal starts to bruise like that. On this one, I can literally rub, and there's no bruising going on because most of the water's come out of it. So these are actually in various stages of drying because it took me a couple of days to get all the petals home. These ones have been sitting out for a while, probably 2 days. These ones have actually been in a box. I just popped them out, and because I was waiting for these to dry more. And these ones have been sitting out for only about a day or two, which is why you can see they retain most of their petal shape. They're still pretty big. You'll notice things start to shrink once they really start to dehydrate out. And any kind of miscoloring like that is okay, like totally fine for these. Now, these are some more rose petals that I haven't broken apart yet. If you'll notice, most of my rose petals are actually in almost full rose shape. The cool thing about roses is once they start to die, you can actually take the rose, and you'll have the stem. You grab right here, and then you just pull. Now these ones were all still too tightly budded. Besides, I wanted some of these with the green still on them because I'm going to dry these just as they are. And we'll do these ones in the oven. But these ones right here, when you pull them, it basically pulls that stem out. So that way you have all these rose petals that you can literally just pull apart. You can stick your finger in there, pull them apart, you lay them out and you dry them. Now some people will tell you when you're drying them, you need to put down a paper towel because of the moisture. I'm doing them in cookie sheets, so I don't need a paper towel put down, and I have them set up high because I have a cat and a chihuahua and a cat who loves to eat rose petals. You could use a paper towel if you're doing the air drying method. You can also use parchment paper or wax paper. You can also use those when we're doing them in the oven. But the parchment paper, the wax paper just keeps your pan from staining. I'm not worried about stains on my pans because I know how to get them out. So that's stage one of the potpourri. And I say stage one because then you got to make it smell nice. The rose scent only lasts so long. So stage two, which when you're doing these ones, it's a little bit different than air drying for how you put the scent on them. So I use a bottle. Some people will use spray bottles. I don't mind getting the scents on my hands. because I can wash them off really easy. And I don't have a spray bottle because I just don't have one right now. I used the last one. So you have different scents that you can get. You can get these in the essential oil aisles and stuff. I tried putting eucalyptus with these, but the eucalyptus overrode everything else. So we're just going to do lavender and sandalwood with the rose petals that I have right now. Now when you're drying them like this, you can add the scent at any time. I wait until after they've dehydrated to add the scent on these ones, just because as the water's evaporating out of them, it's just easier to not have that strong scent put in the beginning because it fades out really fast. And I want the scent to stay with the roses. Now when you put them in the oven, hello Elijah. Love you too. Go. Oh, it started raining, that's why. When you put them in the oven, which we'll talk about that in just a minute. When you put them in the oven, you need to put the essential oils on them before they go in the oven, and then you can do it after. You can always revitalize your potpourri. You don't have to throw potpourri out when it stops smelling. Just make up some more scent, spritz it on the potpourri, and you're good to go, which is why I usually wait until after they've air dried fully before I put the scent on there. Now to do the scent, you want about 15 to 20 drops of each. Usually they say about 2 tablespoons of water. I guess it, and I just go by my nose. Because I can always add more water to dilute the scent if I make it too strong. And you want to choose something that's going to go with the rose smell. Now most roses actually don't have a strong scent. There's a lot of rose species out there that don't even have any smell at all. They were actually bred to have a scent. It's not something that came with a lot of roses naturally. So, well, it's natural now, but the original thing was breeding it in. So once you got that in there, and that's really not a lot of liquid. It's only about probably a teaspoon or half a teaspoon of liquid. You're going to come over to your sink, which we're not going to show you because I have dishes, and you're just going to put water in there. Now they say about 2 tablespoons for about as much as I used for the essential oils. That's about how much water I'm going to put in my container. I can always add more essential oil or add more water, but you also want to be careful depending on the size of your container. This has a lid. This is actually just a spice container that I have. And you're just going to take this bad boy and shake it up. That mixes all those oils together, and you want to make sure the oils are mixed pretty well. After that, it's basically to your scent. Now note, when you put them in the oven, it's legitimately going to smell for the whole entire time that you're cooking, so your house is going to get really smelly for a little bit. Good smells, hopefully. So yeah, that's a good scent. I think I might put a little bit more lavender in there. Water droppage is okay. Dish soap takes out everything, the blue stuff. You can also stir it with a spoon if you don't want to make a mess. And that's that. Now this can store, and that's going to do an awful lot of potpourri. Now, like I said, a lot of people actually just get the little spray bottles. The spray bottles are really cheap to buy. I just don't have any right now on hand. So I'm not actually going to put any of this stuff on the roses that I have out right now. These bad boys, and you can follow me with the camera, I'm actually going to put up. These I'm going to put up over here on top of my fridge. And I'm going to forget about them for a few days and put the scent on later. So now if you don't want to wait however many days it takes to do this, and usually it takes about a week to get them fully dehydrated out, you can do them in the oven. Now this is where your wax paper or parchment paper will heavily come in. You do not want to bake these on just your plain sheet. That will damage your paper, or that'll damage your sheet. Your roses won't come out quite as good. So you're actually going to take this parchment paper, is my preference, and you're just going to put it in your sheet. Now you don't have to do just rose petals. The only reason why I'm doing rose petals is because that's all I have right now. You can cut up lemon, you can put other flowers, you can go out into a field and cut the tops off of some of the flowers and lay these in here. And they will look beautiful. It'll give you kind of more of a mixed up potpourri. The rose petals were free, so I'm cheap. So these ones right here, I actually have one pink one that still has a stem. And I'm actually just going to do these bad boys right here. So you're just going to plop them on there. You don't want them laying on top of each other, but they don't have to be so far apart it's ridiculous. Now for a standard just flat sheet of just petals, it's 200 in the oven. The oven needs to be set at 200, and it's going to cook for about 2 hours because you're drying them out. For these ones, because they're so compact up still, probably going to have these in there for about 3 hours or so. And you guys will have to come back later because I didn't pre-do anything, so I can't show you the results, but I will show you the results in about 3 videos from now, or 2 videos from now, I should say. So you're basically just going to put these bad boys on there, and all I want are these buds. I don't want to break these up because I can totally have this bud look kind of like that, put that in the middle and do some potpourri around it and it'll look nice. And then you're just going to take your liquid. Now this is where having a spray bottle comes in a little bit more handy, but I know what I'm doing, contrary to popular belief. And I don't have a spray bottle. So with this, I'm actually going to kind of pour it onto the rose. If you're doing a spray bottle with petals and other things, you're just going to spritz it and kind of stir it around in there. But I want this scent deep down in those flowers, so we're actually just going to pour it down in there, which is another reason why I like to pour instead of spritz, because it gives me a little bit more control about how much I can put on there. And it's okay if you make a little bit of a mess. Messes can be cleaned up. Crafting is fun. And as you notice, I'm using quite a lot for this. But that's because you're only using X amount of drops. You can always make up more scent later. And this will be a really good focal point for a bouquet, for a little bouquet-ish thing of potpourri. And potpourri, you know, a lot of people think potpourri is an old person thing. You can shake up the scents. Believe it or not, you can actually take your favorite powdered incense. Usually I would suggest these cones, and you can crush them up in a pestle and mortar or crush them up in a food processor and mix them in with the liquid. Now that might stain your petals or your flowers that you're trying to do, but that's okay because these are going to be dried out anyway. Sometimes you can't see the staining, sometimes you can, and that's just dependent on the powder and how it interacts with the petals while they're drying. You might be a little smoky though. That is the biggest concern with those, is that you're going to run into smoke problems because incense smokes, obviously. So that's why you mix it with the liquid after you've put it into a powder form, so you decrease the chance of having a smoke issue. I did that once. I just put powdered incense on a bunch of stuff. My grandmother almost killed me. That was not fun. That was not a fun memory. And since I only have a little bit left, I'm going to go ahead and just put it over everything again. And that's that. So I prefer parchment paper over wax paper for this. It's just a personal preference. There's really not much of a difference. I just sometimes, because the wax on the papers, when you do wax paper, you'll get a residue on the backs of your petals. If your petals are going into a bowl and you're putting the flat sides down, that's awesome. You don't need to worry about it. But if you ever need to spritz it up, mix it up, and kind of get it refreshed, some of that residue might show. So basically, turn the oven on to 200. I am not preheating the oven. You can preheat the oven, that's cool with you, but these things are going to be drying out for so long, you don't really need to. So it's not like it's cooking. You're literally going to have these in the oven for 2 hours. And I'm probably going to have these in for about 2.5. So we're just going to pop them in the oven, have it on 200, and then my house is going to smell good for about 2 to 3 hours. So it's fun. So, welcome to Sam Can't or Can. And I've got a whole bunch more rose petals to put out. Yay! I think I overdid it. Anyway, I'm probably just going to pop these bad boys in this box and use this box. Because you can do it in boxes too. The only problem is that the cardboard is going to absorb the moisture. So you have to stir these ones up more often. And you want to break up your petals, especially if you've pulled the heads off like I do. So break up your petals, shake them up, flip them up. It's a rose flower brigade! And these ones will take longer to dry because they're not really going to be out in the open air because I have a cat who's already tried to get into this box 5 times to eat my rose petals. Anyway, peace out. Y'all have a great day. Bye!